What's up, everybody? Dylan Cease just told Scott Boras to get him a deal with Toronto. Not the Yankees, not the Dodgers, Toronto. And if that doesn't tell you everything about how dramatically this organization has changed in the last year, I don't know what will. We need to talk about the press conferences that happened yesterday between Dylan Cease and Scott Boras, because they had a lot to say about the Toronto Blue Jays organization, the front office, the players, the culture, how things are being run. And honestly, it was really exciting to hear from that side of things, just how people are viewing this franchise now. They've taken the next step. They are leveling up, and it should theoretically help them in their pursuits of other free agents like Kyle Tucker and other elite players who are watching what's happening in Toronto right now. Let's start with this, because this has got to get you fired up if you're a Blue Jays fan. Dylan Cease, one of the most coveted aces on the market, goes to Scott Boras after interviewing with everybody and says, "Scott, you got to get me a deal with Toronto." Think about what Ross Atkins said a couple days ago, saying Dylan Cease was the guy we wanted in the first place. So to have the guy that you wanted also want you is incredibly cool. And that just goes to show, if Dylan Cease, a top pitcher, wanted to go to Toronto, he's not the only one seeing what's going on right now in Canada. We've got some serious momentum building. He recognizes the culture. He's quoted as saying, "You can tell they've built a really impressive culture." And this goes down to the organization, to the players, to what they bring to the table every single day and how they go about their business. What I really love, too, is he actually reached out to Kevin Gausman before signing. He asked Gausman what he had to say about the Jays in Toronto, and there was nothing negative at all. Gausman came back and told him, as I asked around, nobody had any negatives to say about it. The consensus has been, you're going to love the city, you're going to love the organization. It's as simple as that. There wasn't a negative. I just want to live a little bit in that world of Dylan Cease, literally going out of his way saying, I want to deal with Toronto. How amazing is it that in the span of 12 months, we've gone from a team that was only ever being used as leverage to now you are quite literally having upper echelon individuals go to their agents and say, I don't want to go anywhere else. I want to go there. There are two factors why that's happening. Number one, you go to the World Series and you're 2 outs away from winning it. That's very clear. You put yourself on the biggest stage and you talk about culture for all these years, but now everyone gets to see it and see what it looks like when you're actually winning. The other one is Vladimir Guerrero Jr. Think about what's happened in this calendar year. In a span of 12 months, you have Vladimir Guerrero Jr. signed for $500 million. You go to the World Series, you sign Dylan Cease, and we're not done yet. Kyle Tucker is still in play. This whole year has changed everything. In years prior, the Toronto Blue Jays, whenever they were entering into these negotiations, it was an uphill battle. They were fighting against their identity or their perceived identity, how people looked at them, how people thought the culture was, how people thought the clubhouse was. And when you don't win a lot of games, that doesn't help things either. Now it's not an uphill battle anymore. Dylan Cease is quite literally serving himself up on a platter here. He wanted to come to Toronto. He wanted a deal to be made. And I understand why, because on top of all the cultural stuff, apparently their pitches to him, pun intended, on how he's supposed to get better at baseball were very believable. The Blue Jays don't just recruit you and hope for the best. They come in with an exact plan on how they think they can improve you. Shout out to Pete Walker and the staff. Everyone always talks about Pete Walker bringing guys over as projects and turning them into something. Yusei Kikuchi is an example. He's gone out and had some pretty successful years after coming to Toronto and working with Pete Walker and this staff. They came to Dylan Cease with a very specific plan. What caught Cease's attention was when Toronto staff spoke to him about different fastball grips. We're getting down to the nitty-gritty. This is how we think we're going to get you better, not some vague promise. Literally, here's the fastball grip we're going to implement with you. Here's how we can develop that changeup further. He's been primarily a fastball slider guy, and he throws in other pitches at much lower percentages. He's always talked about wanting to develop a changeup. The Blue Jays gave him an opportunity to develop that changeup for the next 7 years in Toronto. That's the thing. He had these meetings with all these teams, Yankees, Dodgers, whoever. After all those interviews were done, there was only one interview that stood out to him, and it was the Toronto Blue Jays. It stood out so much that he told his agent, that's the only team I want to go to right now. The sales pitch of Ross Atkins and Mark Shapiro and everybody in that room has improved dramatically to the point where now it is Toronto. You don't need to pitch anymore. You just showed the world what you're about. The other day we found out the Toronto Blue Jays were the third most looked up sports team in the entire world. Who doesn't want to play for that? Everyone knows what you're all about anymore. There's no more convincing. Now it's like, I'm curious about your team. I want to play for your team. And all Toronto has to do is say, hey, we got a plan for you. Great. You got the money? Great. Sign me up. Scott Boras in this whole press conference made it very clear. He said the Blue Jays listen to what players want in the amenities, what players want in technology to help them improve. The facilities are certainly held in the player community as best in class. He's gassing up the Toronto Blue Jays. Scott Boras is a pretty big name. During the winter meetings, you see all the cameras and microphones around him as soon as he shows up. If he's saying this about Toronto, think about what other free agents are hearing. Scott Boras is playing chess. He wants to continue to have business with Toronto, but it's obviously business that some of his other free agent players have talked to him about. He is one of the most important individuals when it comes to overall signings of free agents. If he is extremely happy with the Toronto Blue Jays and he is gassing them up, you have to imagine that's coming from a place of all of his clients wanting to come here. There is a good relationship forming between the Toronto Blue Jays and the biggest agent in all of baseball. Other agencies can absolutely see that. If Scott Boras is talking big about the Blue Jays, then others will probably follow suit. Now, one big name we've been talking about for a month is Kyle Tucker. He's the number one free agent on the market. He's not represented by Scott Boras. He's represented by Excel Sports Management. If he was represented by Scott Boras, he'd probably already be signed. But we are setting an example right now. We're serious about spending. We've proven we got great culture. We're a winning ball team. Scott Boras called us a championship ball team. We are American League champions. All this is setting the stage for maybe a Kyle Tucker deal to follow, and they're still in negotiations with him right now. John Schneider did have a recent meeting with Kyle Tucker. Don't get too excited because Kyle Tucker's having a lot of recent meetings with a lot of different teams. However, Schneider came out and was rather candid about the whole thing, got into just a little bit of the nitty-gritty about what the sales pitch was, but effectively summed it all up and said it was very productive. You have to imagine it was because clearly the meeting with Dylan Cease was very productive. At this current juncture, the Toronto Blue Jays are undeniably among the favorites to go out and sign Tucker. What's hitting home for me most is that in years prior, you'd hear Ross Atkins talking up the Toronto Blue Jays, Mark Shapiro talking up the Blue Jays, especially in their end-of-year pressers talking about how great this team is. It's not them doing it anymore. Now it's other people. Third-party people are the ones praising and talking about how incredible this organization is. Toronto has finally reached the pinnacle of their spending potential. Scott Boras summed it up beautifully, saying they should have been a top 5 payroll in all of baseball for a long period of time. Now they are finally reaching that potential because people are finally starting to come here. I've said this before, I'll say it again. The Blue Jays could end up as a number 2 or number 1 payroll, maybe not this year, but most certainly in the coming years, if everyone keeps seeing how the Blue Jays are performing and they keep seeing the culture on the big screen in the World Series. If people are going to continue to come here, the Blue Jays are taking the next step forward, and that is becoming an upper echelon team in all of baseball. A team that everyone wants to play for, a team we don't have to convince or chase anymore. They come to us because we've built something. I look at it now, and it always used to be the 2 New York teams and the LA Dodgers for me. Sometimes San Diego because they were so active. But honestly, now it's the 2 New York teams, LA and the Toronto Blue Jays. That's tier 1 when it comes to spending and being active in the market and getting deals done. Those other teams have had their off seasons recently. This is Toronto's off season. This is the one that cements us in that tier 1. And that tier 1 also increases expectations. Last year, our expectation was if we could just get back over 500, maybe make a wild card, that would be a major win. Now you got to get back to the ALCS and give yourself a chance at the World Series, which is an awesome place to be if you're a Toronto Blue Jays fan. Point being, there are a lot more moves still to come. We're going to see Kyle Tucker rumors developing. We're going to see what else happens as winter meetings wrap up. The market is moving, and Toronto is positioned better than they've been in years. This roster is being built right now, and the decisions being made will determine whether Toronto becomes a sustained championship contender or just had one good year. But based on everything we're hearing from Dylan Cease, from Scott Boras, from the way other players are viewing this organization, it's clear that something real is happening in Toronto. The culture is legitimate. The spending is there. The winning is there. And now the players want to be part of it. That's the shift that matters most. Shift.